First and foremost is to welcome all of you, members of the Fourth Estate, for this press briefing, which comes right on the heels of the just concluded by-elections, which I think IBC has declared almost all the results of all the polling centers, of all the electoral units, from county to the wards. I'm joined here by members of the Secretariat because, as you are aware, a significant number of our members, the leadership, was out there campaigning in the respective electoral zones. And I think those of you who've been keen following up on these developments would bear me witness that you did identify most of the leaders in various parts of the country. The purpose of this press conference, first and foremost, is to most sincerely and most warmly and most wholeheartedly thank all those who voted for the UDA, and those equally thank those who did not vote for us in their capacity as Kenyans exercising their democratic right. I want to tell you in no uncertain terms that we have heard, and we will ensure that all concerns and all this information that was gathered during these by-elections campaigns across the country will continue to inform the debate and the discourse this party will continue to have, but is to most sincerely convey our gratitude to all those who participated in these elections. We also want to congratulate all those who participated in these elections, the winners from the UDA, the winners from outside the UDA, and those who competed in these various elections for the spirit they all exhibited during the elections. There were 24 contests. UDA participated in 21 across the country. We won 12 of the 21. Our other allies won 6 within that broad spirit of the BBG. So we actually have secured an almost supermajority in all these contests across the country. It shows that the unity of the country is paramount, and Kenyans are appreciating both the development programs by the President and the Kenya Kwanza government, or the BBG government, and appreciating the unity exhibited by the various political formation in this country, particularly the Kenya Kwanza government and ODM. And therefore also congratulate all those who won from our BBG government formation: Boyd, Omondi, and Harrison Kombe, and others from Fort Kenya in Fafi, who also have won a similar feat. Secondly, is just to tell the rest of the Kenyan people, particularly those of us who sip tea in Nairobi and make uninformed noises on the social media, that this country actually appreciates the impact of our programs. In fact, in a lot of the areas that were hitherto excluded from this country's development framework, marginalized and minorities, the contests were not between us and the united opposition. In fact, either the united opposition is not concerned of these areas, or those in these areas are not concerned about the united opposition. There was no united opposition candidates in all these areas that were hitherto marginalized. In Turkana, the contest was between us and ODM. In Banisa, it was between us and Fort Kenya. In other places, it was us and UDM, like in Tana River. These are the people who the Kenya Kwanza or the BBG government programs have impacted most strongly. People who have seen roads for the first time since independence. People who are accessing healthcare in manners that they never anticipated or ever imagined. People who have the promise of water and there's deliberate effort that they can see. Just today, the president has launched the Rironi, even as I speak, Rironi Mau Summit Road. And by March next year, we will be launching the Mau Summit Malaba. I want to bring the entire country into the matrix of development. And I think that's the audacity and the courage of the Kenya Kwanza government. These elections, like most of you in the media had called it, was like a test. It was like a midterm. All of you understand in democracies, electorates punish heavily governments that probably will be popular a year or two down the line. It's happening to Donald Trump. It's happening in a lot of other democracies. But this one gave us, to the contrary, gave us a faith, an expression of confidence, a vote of confidence. And we want to really thank the people of Kenya who expressed confidence. Because we see tea in Nairobi, going to the social media, and are constantly sabotaging the government's programs. You're asking for William Ruto to build stadiums and pay debt, some of you in the first 6 months of his administration. I have that pattern. Some of your media houses were asking William Ruto, Deni, Kenya is indebted. And you're wondering, is this man or woman who's asking this question sincere? So you need to exercise a bit of sincerity and have some philosophy that informs part of your critique. Sometimes, you know, as politicians, as absurd as they might sound, sometimes you ask a question, and I ask myself later on, what school did that man or young woman go to? Because that question that he asked is evidence of the most acute sense of ignorance. So we must also now, as a country, be a bit more sincere, because we've impacted on the people left out of the prison. We say it here, bottom-up economic transformation agenda. The word transformation was used because the word revolution would have sounded too extreme to many of you in the middle class. These types of revolutions, where you totally and fundamentally reorganize the architecture of a country, be it it's economic, it's social, it's political, are usually revolutions that are carried out by militaries. Che Guevara, Thomas Sankara, but we carried out through a democratic process. And we were brave, unlike other governments in the past, which cow down on the basis of being told not to implement the universal health care. We soldiered on. You told us not to implement housing. It is impacting on the lives of the Kenyan people, and it is transforming lives and offering job opportunities. SHA had some teething problems, but audaciously we continued as a government, because we believe every Kenyan deserves quality and accessible and possibly free healthcare. So we have, with courage, when we came in, we decided to own our sovereign obligations. The past government had set up a booby trap for anybody to fail, but we didn't. We went to the market, we borrowed, we were able to own our sovereign obligations. We removed controls on the Kenyan shilling. It competes in the market on its own strength. We have paid the Eurobond. We have been able to reprofile our debts on the SGR. So we have now enough headroom in the economy, in our domestic revenue mobilization to undertake some other priority areas of development. The country we have been able to subsidize other fertilizers, production rather than subsidize consumption. God blessed us with rains. We now have strategic reserves that are building up. Our foreign exchange reserves have built up. We have an import cover, which we have doubled from $6 billion to about $11 billion. There are things that have happened. The outlook, and not us, the IMF, World Bank, gives a very positive outlook. But then you find some tedious, annoying blogger constantly trying to destroy a country. We see you people these days inviting panelists that are neither economists, have no subject matter familiarity, that are not in the sector. Everybody these days knows everything. Every Kenyan is an expert on everything, which is fair enough. But at least even the way I understand Islam, it has compartmentalized knowledge. Everybody has his own sector speciality. That's why you would hardly hear me speak about medicine. I leave those with medicine. Like up in Kenya, you can even do an open heart surgery and kill the patient. So we need to be a little more sincere about this country. The president in the State of the Nation articulated a grand plan for Kenya to build its muscle and its infrastructure through its own resources, through the National Sovereign Fund. Because we are testing new parameters. People are usually accustomed to doing things the old usual way. We sought the government or the validation of the Kenyan people on an agenda. We are the first government after KANU post-independence that is implementing its manifesto word for word. I can show you everything that is in that manifesto that is being implemented. You have it in your public record. Be it stadia, be it the creative, be it agriculture, be it SMEs, be it housing, be it healthcare. I hope you did not think we were just beating about the bush and joking as usually other people will joke and then continue with the same path. I think this is the one president and one government that has set a clear path of political transformation. And I'm happy, I must say I'm extremely elated that people out there, beyond the noises in TikTok, because if you had followed TikTok and these things you are on, you would have thought you are losing everything. Sijui Boyd is losing, it's not happening in Baringo, sijui huyu one time, sijui yule hivi. You know, sometimes build character in yourself by also being hesitant about criticizing others. You wake up an adult of sane mind and you go to the platforms of other men and other women and are constantly posting insults. And you have your picture of your daughter and your son on your profile. It's traumatizing sometimes to know the absurd use of social media. But ground vitu ni na kama watu wanasikiza kweli ground wangekuwa wameisikia. Sijui bado wanasikiza. Si ground imezungumza. So that is the clarion call to the Kenyan people to support this transformative agenda, to support the unity of the country. As I said, we have moved from that divide and rule of the colonial relic to unite and rule, have the participation of everyone. We are trying to rebuild the ethnic fractures that were created by the colonial masters. We are trying to get rid of the colonial borders. That's why we are unapologetically Pan-African in this party. We believe in the unification of Africa, or in the East Africa. Even some of us understood Museveni, most of you didn't understand. He simply said, why do you allow these colonial borders to limit us in terms of our trade? No Kenyan government or a leadership under the Kenya Kwanza BG government will ever restrict the use of her seas or our ocean to the detriment of Uganda. They are Kenyans. Their Sebe is there, Kalenjin's here. Their Tesos there, their Tesos here. Simply divided by a colonial masters, and you hang on to these borders with such passion. Ati mimi ni hivi, mimi ni hivi. The first and most fundamental thing is to appreciate your African identity rather than the colonial partitions that put us into artificial borders. So these are some of the things this party believes in totally. We are totally Pan-African. We want to build this East African Federation of 320 million people. So it's because me, I'm Bantu. We were told as Bantus we came from Cameroon. Nobody stopped us. Tukapata tukakuja hivi kona paka tukafika hapa. Wengine nasikia walitoka Sudan, wamekata kona. Wamefika hapa, William Ruto, kina Raila Odinga. Why are we restricting anybody else from moving all over Africa? These are some of the things which we need to have a conversation. And one of the things we need to do as I finish this part of my speech, and I'm back on the second half, is to continue to create a country of critical thinkers, the culture of reading. But UDA, by its own systems, by its own appeal, has young people elected. Yeah, because we have even the elderly, who the electorate still believe they have something to offer. We know democracy, you cannot simply discriminate on the basis of age, color, race. But more importantly, UDA has 2 women elected on their own motion. 2 women. One in Jewani Ward, Sophia, and another in Samburu, Isabella. Demonstrably, strong candidacy in women. The chair of this organization is a strong, able governor who, some man somewhere, a disgraced former deputy president, continues to profile, demonstrating a sense of hatred, lack of political sophistication, savagery. So we need to continue to mainstream and enhance women leadership. And now it will be an anticlimax to this press if we do not also address our grave concerns, particularly to one man referred to as Wamunyoro. You know, by design, many of you have made him a subject of our political discussions, but you realize that he is as irrelevant as it gets. He managed some 1 or 2 seats that he was able to incite some ethnic basis against the regime of, or the government of William Ruto. What I want to tell this gentleman is that as a young Kenyan who's now not very young anymore, who probably has had a more illustrious struggle in this country's democratic transformation than he ever will. As Kindiki reminded him, Kindiki was a lecturer when he was stealing maize and relief food. I was also fighting in the Moi regime, serving as a commissioner when he was serving as a district commissioner or district officer. And by default or design, somehow his brother's death ushered him into member of parliament, and then by accident, as vice president, a mistake that UDA has already corrected early in the day. His constant incitement for violence or creating a theater to incite violence must stop.
Yes.
Hii nchi si yako peke yako. We're now getting fed up with you trying to condition a country because you think you have some ethnic base somewhere, preparing it and inciting it for violence. You have done it repeatedly over this electoral period. Every time you have an issue, you threaten of consequences of 2027 based on past experiences. I want to assure you, yesterday you asked youth between 18 and 35 to show up at Siakago. Not even your own son between that age showed up. That shows you that your fallacy has now become something of public notoriety, which people have taken cognizance of. But I want to tell you, we were in the opposition with you. We lost gruesome elections in Kabuchai, in London, here in Naivasha. We never at one time threatened anybody with violence. We never at one time threatened anybody with the consequences of the 202 post-election violence. I think the public has spoken. To a large extent, the public rejects your call for violence and intimidation. Today, I visited a lot of marginalized areas. I went to Turkana. I saw people who have never seen anything but war. War in the north, war in the west. I went to West Pokot. I saw people whose security is their biggest concern. And you think you are brave because you say when you talk to a Mau. It is, if that were to be true, it is your father who's Mau, not you. You are simply a district commissioner stealing maize and relief food. You have no credentials anywhere that has tested your courage or your bravery in terms of executing public agenda. So my advice to you is to tone down. It will not be as easy. I am the one who has taken it upon myself because I know how reckless, how skewed, how unobjective you are to respond to all your letters. You write to the IG, I respond. Because I don't want to put these offices into the mud that you like to put people into. You write to the commissioner, IBC, I respond to you. Because UDA knows you better than anybody else. But we're asking you to cease and desist. We will not allow you, Rigiji or Kawamunyoro, to mess this country up. You should stop threatening people with violence all the time. The monopoly of violence is only and only with the state. And that this state, this government has a duty to protect. It will protect the lives and properties of all Kenyan citizens. It will not allow you to replay the theatrics of June of 2024 and June of 2025. You must stop. The public has spoken. The overwhelming majority of this country has rejected your message. Savagery, an auxiliary of colonial divisions because you carry the same ideology of divide and rule. So it's time that you stop your violent approach or your call for violence. Every other time you are threatening this government, you are threatening this country with violence because sijui uko na mlima, sijui uko na nani. Even that mlima has demonstrated to you it is not subservient to you. Gallant sons and daughters of that mlima have demonstrated with you that they don't agree with you to a large extent. Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki, the Deputy President, Cecily Mbarire, Kimani Ichung'wah, and other gallant sons of that region. So, and the second one is to stop threatening and intimidating democratic institutions of this country and constitutional commissions and institutions. You picked on a little girl from Mombasa, from Lamu. I have been very hesitant to react to that. Don't you be deceived. that Fahima or Ethacon will be intimidated by you. They don't bear any allegiance to us. We hope and urge them to conduct their mandates with utmost diligence, with utmost independence, as per the constitutional role of their offices. But when you try to threaten them and profile them socially, don't you think that you will achieve those aims? A man of his caliber picking and casting aspersions on a 31-year-old young woman who has burst the banks of marginalization and stereotyping to become vice chair of the IEBC, then a man with no wit, no wisdom, no focus, no vision, casts aspersions on her and tries to profile her. So I'm asking all independent commissions and all institutions of government not to fall into the intimidation and the ploys of this gentleman. It's his characteristic way. Alisema usiguze mlima, tukamugusa. Hatukugusa mlima, tulimgusa yeye. Hivi tu, si akaenda hospitali. So, fall not in this prey of intimidation. All institutions must carry out their job as per the design of the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. They must not be intimidated by this perennial gambler, characteristic, mode of attack. He had imagined that he was a bigger than life kind of person, constantly intimidating the police, intimidating the judiciary, intimidating the IBC. Even as we were in the opposition, I do not recall of any significant intimidation any of us had on institutions of government. We were in Kabuchai, we were in London, we participated in Msambweni. At no time did we accuse institutions of any foul play. The fellow has made it his business to pick and profile people. I think as a government, and I speak also as the appointing or the party appoints government or nominates its government, that it is, again, stop this intimidation. I think moving forward now, we'll have a slightly serious approach to these kinds of reckless individuals. I think the most indefatigable leader of the opposition we had was Raila Odinga. And we saw he actually built institutions to protect democracy. This one is trying to break down these institutions and intimidate in the country all the time. Where you see DCP, you see ethnicity. These are fringe little parties. Wiper, mepata kakiti kamoja hapo Mumbini North. Kameran kila mahali amepata ka. Me, I've grown. I used to be Wiper Secretary General. It's difficult to grow Kalonzo Musyoka beyond that region. Amepata kakiti yake kamoja. And actually has held people captive in the quest for his ambition. Amepata kamoja huyo Matiang'i naye amepata kwao ati hawataki kumlet down ili aweze kuja kunegotiate kwa kuwe president. Sasa wewe unajengwa na ukabila alafu sisi tuku accept kama national president. The person who's always on the social media insulting us is some young gentleman who's a member of parliament. Akatuambia you are 900,000. Sasa sisi pia tuko wingi kuliko hiyo. Unajua mimi nikialish zile community zangu. Badala ya kusema sisi ni wa Kenya, tunataka tu negotiate a national agenda. Natuambia tunataka tupige hesabu hiyo. Ama ukipiga hesabu hiyo hakuna mahali huyo jamaa ataenda. Itakuwa kama ile Nyachae tu 2002. Watu wengi kumbe ni pale Gusii Stadium. Hata sisi tutapiga kelele kumbe itakuwa hapo kwa stadium moja. Kenya ndio iko watu wengi. So these are village parties. But galia UDA. So mumeona nini wenyewe? Mna hope we have been drawing this map I hope mutachora nyinyi kama media. Some of you are graphic designers. Again, kwa front page kesho, kwa vile now you have all the results, vile nchi imekuwa yellow na pale haiko yellow, iko rafiki zetu wa orange, alafu pia mweke pale hii discipline kala gani? White, green. Weke hapo, alafu mwangalie vile itakavyoonekana, because you guys are also graphic designers, mnatuweka kwa vikapu all the time. So now you should graphic design. Wiper bado ni blue, ime change to patriotic ama demo front. So mweke, these people, you should be told that this city doesn't pay. Those who are not with the rest of Kenyans, as we approach this transformational agenda in the elections, you'll be out for a long time. Kenyans will be very unforgiving to people who constantly think that you need to push your tribes meat ili aje hata awapatie opportunities. Sasa kama nyinyi mnafikiria mkipigia Matiang'i ndio mtapata mambo yenu, sasa kwani sisi ni mafala? Tuwape ili mtunyanyase? You must paint a national agenda. Their candidate who's affiliated got 1,000 votes in Banisa. So, in the Banisa parliamentary elections. So it's small pockets of ethnically incited electorates. And that's why William Ruto and the late Raila Odinga were urging for this broad coalition to be able to foster a broad and a united Kenya. And we want some of you to come in. Like this is a bit personal, I have to say it. You know, like the Magarini man, that was our candidate. We asked him politely that in the spirit of building this country, let Kombe finish his 1.5 years, and then we front you. He's a very credible candidate. Don't be cheated, those are his votes. We invested in him. He lost the elections by 26 votes in the 2002 general elections. But by making a wrong decision, he has now lost by an even severe margin. But he's one person I would be so happy to welcome back. You know, I also have this thing that goes in my mind, that sometimes people make decisions based on anger or ill-advised circumstances. So I hope some of those who, what made Panyako resign as vice chair? He resigned as vice chair to go and run under DCP. Meona leo amepost anarudi back to nursing. A good idea. Because hii siasa, you have to be methodical. Should have just come in as vice chair of UDA, probably tried a nomination, and you will have seen. So all these credible candidates, our candidates. By the way, if you poll some of these areas on the presidency, notwithstanding, William Ruto is unassailably ahead of any presidential candidate. So even in Malava, in Kakamega County, he's far ahead. But people are also electing on some local dynamics. So you leave UDA, you leave your nursing profession, at least you have chosen to go back to nursing. But I wish you well. I saw you had a very long day yesterday. I hope the Almighty grants you a quick recovery, both in terms of the politics and the anger. Also, anger is a disease. And that is the case. In some of these other areas, it was only our candidates. Ford Kenya, UDA, ODM, areas that the united opposition didn't think existed. And these people equally, no candidate thought they existed. So these are the kind of circumstances that we are in. But I will pause here. I decided not to script myself today to read a written text. I scripted some few points that I wanted to discuss with this media. But as I said, the input of this was to most heartedly congratulate our candidates across the country, and every candidate who won, and all of those who participated in these elections yesterday. Asanteni sana. Yes, Dugu.
UDA SG.
Yeah.
What do you make of some leaders from UDA supporting other candidates in the Senate by-election?
They made such bad decisions. Institutions of political parties are institutions of democracy. Parties are built on the strength of its membership complement. This party today, we don't like to say it like our colleagues, is the biggest party in the country. It has the most expansive political infrastructure. This party is building physical infrastructure. We have built in to our programs our ideological infrastructure. Before you pick a war with this party, you must go and consult God in the evening, so that when you come, you do know that there are consequences to picking a war with your party, especially from within. So, if they are very brave, Halwale, Seki, the elections coming up again. Karis forfeited his seat. We lost the Isiolo member of parliament, if you recall, Isiolo South, and his son has joined us in the UDA party. So if they are brave, if they're the men they say they are, because they are elected, I'm asking them to resign from the party and face us in an election when these other elections are being run. Kama wewe sijui ni Masai warrior wa ukweli, wacha kuwa paper tiger. Unajificha nyuma, unajaribu kutupiga vita na hii DCP yako tumekushinda ndani ya Purko. I'm aware Seki was supporting the opponent. Halwale was supporting the opponent. Others were supporting the opponent. But you see, at least others like the ones in let's say Garissa, Fafi, they were supporting an opponent from within. The member of parliament was supporting an opponent from Fort Kenya. That is at least, there's mitigation in that. Again, if you're supporting an opponent and you think you are that brave and that popular, run, resign. Raila Odinga, once upon a time, when he decided that his place was no longer Fort Kenya, he resigned and ran for his Langata seat on an NDP ticket. Sasa huyu kama wewe ni bullfighter, kama wewe sijui ni Masai warrior, Moran sijui of the first class, resign. Face UDA in an election in the next. In fact, that guy said ako na rungu yake, he desecrated that rungu ati akiona mtu ya UDA atapiga. Don't beat watu wa UDA na rungu yako. Toka UDA. Enda simama na sisi. In fact, I'm inviting him to a contest. Aone. You know, this is cowardly. One of our esteemed former senators, I am reliably informed, has become a blogger. I am told she is posting bile, telling us how to run this party. I saw a message, he said, take it to the bank. UDA will lose. Sijui Baringo, sijui UDA. You could not even protect yourself from losing a seat in court. How do you predict what we will lose? This is political formation led by William Ruto, one of the most accomplished politicians and leaders in this country. In fact, I think there are only two of a kind, the late Raila and himself. So, those who dare us, there are consequences to it. So I'm asking Boni, he's my good friend by the way. Boni is one of my mentors in politics. In fact, I will want us to test him. Aende atukue tikiti ya DCP asimame. Ni DCP ama ni DAPK? Yeah, DAPK asimame. Tujaribu. Seki aende akachukue DCP asimame. We are ready for this by-election. Sini kupimana nguvu. They are bidding their time, wanting us to negotiate with them. Some of them, you are saying that they are willing to talk to William Ruto because they think they are kingpins of their regions. You can't use blackmail on this government and this leadership. That one will not happen. So we're asking you in good faith, kina Metho alisema sijui atavua nguo. He said something. What did he say? Ata-resign. Mwambie resign. I thought he said he was going to strip naked. I was like, I don't know where I heard that from. Yeah.
James from the Standard newspaper.
Yes.
When you look at the win in Malava and the margin, what is your comment on that?
Seth Panyako lost to Malulu Injendi by 2,000 votes in 2002. Those are 2022. Those are the dynamics. Ruku won with less than 1,000 votes against the UDA candidate, then Jagagwa. Those are the margins in those constituencies. You know, analysis is based on data. And if you look at Mbere, that's how people have won that seat historically. In fact, if you look at Embu politics, people win with very narrow margins. Even our governor won with a narrow margin, but the votes went to William Ruto. It doesn't mean that they will divide the votes the same way. The presidential dynamics are different. But it's just that once somebody said it's his bedroom, he went and shouted like a juvenile. Ati sijui mtu alisema atakuja kuwakojolea na helicopter. Do you people ever listen to this man? Is it even right for some of you to put it in your media houses? You know, at least I want to commend the church. The church had realized that the only thing Rigiji does is to wake up on a Sunday morning to go to a church pulpit and say bad things. Most of them have stopped him. You've seen that for yourself. It's for you to take public notice, judicial notice of. If some of you also can stop, some of you I see you go na hizo vipindi zenu, mnamweka microphone, sijui mnamfanyia ile cosmetic, ati mnataka kuminterview usiku. Mnaona mnafanya kitu ya maana, ati mnatafuta viewership. Have a philosophy for this country. There are things that you must not do to this country. That's why some of us these days are getting a bit more worn out coming to media houses, because you come to a media house and you find yourself, you've been put in a panel with somebody and you're wondering, how do we relate? Because you guys are looking for viewership. Me, I'm looking for a healthy discussion based on informed discourse. Me, I'm not looking for viewership. I have, when I used to be in KCHR, I used to live in the TV. So it's no longer that big a challenge. I know I can do a good talk show, but also pair people with people who can have constructive discussions with. You pair us with people who their only sense is their Twitter handles. Unaenda mahali umewekwa kwa debate na panel na Twitter handle, unamwona kwa Twitter. So suddenly the media has thought it wise that this now man or woman is a big influencer. Yet there is no ideology. You know, some of us when we were younger, when I was in the student movement, I exuded Marxism. We believed in social economic transformation, which is what you see today, to return the means of capital within the masses, or means of production. That's what we advocated for, an equal and fair society where everybody was dignified, right to housing, right to food, right to shelter, right to education. These are the things you see now. But nowadays, the content creation. In fact, I know sometimes people look for me, I've seen it once or twice, to say, tell me something very bad. And then ati anasema ameni-inject. Anaenda nakata hiyo kadogo na trend. Ati I injected the SG of the ruling party. Wewe unafikiria ku-inject mimi ni rahisi? Kuja kwa discussion.
Finally, from the opposition is blaming UDA for the violence in Malava. What is your opinion on that?
You know, politicians perpetuate violence. You know, I saw a very disturbing video of how low we have sunk. Today, even if I caught you on the wrong, ngumi moja mbili maybe, unfortunately, is not even right itself. Sindio? But to strip someone and then post it on a social media handle, and then you shout about everything, and then you say people are violent, sijui nasema Ruto achukue kila kitu, then you wail, like you know, in this politics you don't wail. Sijui kwa nini huyu jamaa huyu na Malala kila wakati wanalialia. Hiyo unaenda kulia kwa keja, natoa machungu yote kija hapa, unakuwa umekamua machozi nje. So politicians perpetrate this violence, and people sometimes act in self-defense, but as a party we condemn it. As a party we don't tolerate violence of any kind, but it's been in the nature of our politics in some areas that violence was even meted on my people master. Do you know I did my pupillage under one Kaluma, when I used to be a pupil at Kaluma, Muma and Lumumba Advocates. He was my pupil master. He was beaten. He cannot have been us who beat him. So if you see, the opposition came with an intent to disrupt, but the government had its structures to ensure that the elections proceeded in a situation that was peaceful, free and fair.
SG, my name is Ndubi from Nation.
Yeah, I've read you before. Yeah. You once also sent me a message to text. Na sasa wewe unataka mimi nikujibu, watu wananiletea mimi message hata sijui, can you comment? Wewe vipi Ndubi? Sinilenga. Leo sitolenga because you're here in person.
Yeah, there are claims about voter bribery that the United Opposition is saying that most of these candidates, the seats won through voter bribery in polling stations.
Waweza ngapeleka hiyo kwa koti. I'm not the one who tests evidence, but truth be told, there is this gentleman called Stephen Leto. He posted some of these polls. Some of those polls were accurate. There is science. Our campaigns is supported by science. You will see areas that UDA didn't even set foot, because the science had told us hapa hakuna kura yenu, na yeye sahi we are looking for votes. We'll come to you when we are building the nation, whether you're in our party or not. So a lot of people spend a lot of time campaigning in the opponent's stronghold. So you will see, as you know, UDA, you register through a public portal. So unajua hata wewe sahi unaweza kuwa, you can be somewhere and just register as a UDA member. You can decide to pay as a candidate, and we have an obligation legally, once you have paid as a candidate, if you are the only one who's applied for it, to run you, unless otherwise, kama vile we decided in Magarini. So we issued these tickets, but there are areas we never even, because we thought either a coalition partner stood a better chance or we stood no chance. So the outcome is exactly what the opinion polls had indicated. My brother, you can pay as much as you want, but ultimately, when you are faced with the ballot, you are by yourself, Ndubi. The last time I checked, unless you're an assisted voter, nobody knows which side you have voted on. Any one or two more, or any question? But this is one of the few times, I'll not say who, I have been giving a conference, and the person who's been agreeing with me most is one of the guys in the media. So I hope I get a very positive story from you. I'll be finding out which media house you come from. So because wajua kawaida media show no emotions, they don't clap, they don't laugh, but there was one who was agreeing with me. Kama anasema hii ni point, hii ni point, and I kept speaking because I can see he was nodding on and on. So anyway, that's said and done. I want to wish Kenyans a happy December. It starts next week. Those will be mashujaa, we will honor you. Alafu tuingie Christmas, mujichunge. As Kibaki says, musikunywe sana, na mujichunge, musende mbio sana na magari. Alafu baada hapo tukuje New Year tuendelee na mipangilio ya serikali na ya kiraia na ya kitaifa. But we really hope we can remain united as a country. I'd love to do this we'd love to do this with the media a lot more, so that you understand us. In fact, we want to have you sometimes in the future, if your editors would allow, Ndubi and the rest of you, when there are no cameras. You ask us the hard questions. Things that you also sometimes think you'll be crossing the line. Muje muulize. Ruto, 1, 2, 3, muulize. But one of the things here, when the president sits there, you will think he is just a first among equal. Everybody presents his views. There are positions that we have taken, which we advised him, and he accepted. A position he took, we advised him, he stepped down on those positions. But on the overall, he's the team leader. He actually finally bears the responsibility. Kama rais, sio mimi. So ultimately he takes responsibility. When this government fails, you say William Ruto. When this government succeeds, it's William Ruto. So he takes the ultimate responsibility of the decisions he makes, but listens to counsel. So all of you can come and counsel, because also some of you meet people and stakeholders that we can even hardly imagine to meet. You know, as I part ways, remember there was a time, the special branch, which is the national intelligence, used to have a lot of members of the media as its recruits. Reason being, the information that is shared with you, the stories you receive vis-a-vis the stories you kill, probably the ones you kill are even more. But the information you get from various stakeholders can inform public debate. So sometimes look for practical platforms to put some of these things into use. I think that's what we as a UDA government are planning, and a continued engagement with the people. So asanteni sana, tumeshukuru sana, na kesho nataka kuona hiyo map imebadilika yellow. The country has become yellow. Yeah.